to start with Jonathan Taylor, who the Colts have given him permission to seek a trade. And we've heard, this is what Shane Steichen on Sunday had to say about the latest around Jonathan Taylor, specifically with the team.
Shane, will JT travel to Philly with you guys?
Yes, he will. Yep.
Then Raven brought up your roster cuts a week from Tuesday. Have you guys thought about keeping him on PUP at all, or is that in the discussion?
Yeah, we're still working through all those things right now. Obviously, like I said, when he's cleared 100%, he'll be out there.
So not a lot from the coach, obviously, on Jonathan Taylor, but the big news here is that the Colts have given him permission to seek a trade, but it also seems like the Colts have really high demands, as there's reports out there that they want a first-round pick here. So I think this tweet from Dwayne McFarland honestly sums it up really well. Jim Irsay, running backs don't matter and we aren't paying Jonathan Taylor. Also, Jim Irsay, Jonathan Taylor is worth a first-round pick and we want market value.
Yeah, I mean, he's talking a little bit out of both sides of his mouth, and it does feel like when they say, hey, go seek, we're going to give you permission to go, we're going to give you permission to seek a trade. It's a little bit like my wife saying, like, hey, Matthew, feel free to hit on Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out.
Goes.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like, yeah, sure, like, if you can get Michelle Pfeiffer to go on a date with you, knock yourself out. Like, it just,
Michelle Pfeiffer reference.
Right, I mean, I don't know, I was just trying to think of somebody.
A slice of humble pie.
I was trying to go for who's somebody that's clearly out of my league that my wife has no fear of losing me to. And there's a long list of women I could have chose from, and that was the first one that came up to me. Actually, I heard the Bruno Mars song on the way in. The white gold and the whole thing. Anyway, it's expensive to trade for Jonathan Taylor, right? And there's not a lot of places out there that are willing to do that. I think, but maybe this is a good scenario in that if he does in fact get dealt, and I think it's unlikely, candidly. I think it's unlikely that he gets dealt. But if he does, it'll be that a team that wants to use him, it'll be a good situation, that wants to pay him, that wants to do whatever. No team that's a bad team, it'll be a team that's better than the Colts. Like, no team that's rebuilding is going to, trade for him. Like the Texans aren't being like, hey, let us go pay, a lot of money to go get Jonathan Taylor. So if he does end up going somewhere, it'll be a team that is likely built to win and will be in scoring opportunities more often than the Colts will be this year, and also is somebody that wants him. So he should get a heavy workload. The challenge, though, is it going to be a team that doesn't have any real competition? I mean, right now if Jonathan Taylor's there, he's the guy. But if he goes to, I'm making it up there, if he goes to Philadelphia, like, you'll still see some of those guys in the mix. And I'm not saying Philadelphia's necessarily in the mix, but they do have a lot of cap space. They're clearly all in for this year,
There's just a lot swirling around. I think the most complicated thing is that it's unclear if he can run right now because he's dealing supposedly with the ankle, which I just don't know how to really price that into everything around Jonathan Taylor. And yes, he might get traded to a team that is better and has more touchdown potential for him, but he might have lower usage there. And how does that balance out with him being on the Colts? If he gets traded, that means he's probably more likely to just play week one on his new team. And if he doesn't get traded, maybe he's likely to not play for the Colts. And so you weigh all of this up, and I think it just comes down to a question of at what point in a draft does JT become value and what is the cutoff point? And for me, the cutoff point is Najee Harris. I would rather have Jonathan Taylor than Najee Harris, which means that I would take him at the top of the third round, that type of range.
Yeah.
But I mean, I want Derrick Henry, I want Tony Pollard, I want Nick Chubb, I want all these guys over Jonathan Taylor.
Agreed.
And so I think that him and Josh Jacobs are in a similar boat. I'd probably take them both over Najee Harris, but I'm not taking Taylor over Henry or Chubb or those guys.
For people that are watching on Peacock or NFL on NBC YouTube channel, you saw my rankings there, and I have him ahead of like Joe Mixon, and like I'm going to move him down. I'm going to move him past, further down. I have him at 8 right now among my running back rankings. I'll move him down to 10, if not further. I agree with you. Like, there's just bad vibes right there. Like, I'm going to put him under Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is reported. Like, we expect him to play. I'm going to move him past Joe Mixon. Like, I feel better about Joe Mixon's workload than I do Jonathan Taylor's right now. Because, there's a scenario, Jay, where Jonathan Taylor wants to accrue time so he can get to free agency, but he's in the training room saying, like, I don't know, I'm still feeling a twinge.
Yep.
I don't know, my hammies are acting up. Like, there's just gonna, like, he could sort of, I don't know.
That's a scary one to me.
Right?
He can't find a trade partner because what team's giving up an asset, a first-round pick, and financial assets? That seems very unlikely. Maybe we'll be surprised. Right. And then the fact that if he's on the Colts, he's very unhappy, and it's personal. It feels like with ownership. Yep. Do little injuries or lingering injuries become injuries that cause him not to play, and you just used a second-round asset or a third-round asset in fantasy on this player, and you're getting no return?
Ramondre Stevenson or Jonathan Taylor?
Ramondre.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm
Travis
with you.
Etienne or Jonathan Taylor?
That's where it starts to become a tough pull.
Probably still Taylor, but that's feeling dicier.
Yeah, I think that's a coin flip, and I'd take Taylor over Najee Harris, but he's in that kind of range now.
But that's exactly right. On my old show, we used to do this thing called the name game, and that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's just like, especially it depends on sort of how you play fantasy football. So number one is like if you're in only one league and you're like, I'm in this league and I've been with my boys for like 12 years and like this is like hardcore and like the loser punishment is awful. Like, I get it. Like I don't necessarily want to, it's tough to use a second round or third round pick on Jonathan Taylor where he could just literally sink your season. Yep. But like if you're in like 4 or 5 leagues and it's like it's a work league and like whatever or best ball, then you're going to want some exposure to Jonathan Taylor because if he does get traded or he does report, then you've just got if we knew everything was fine, 100% healthy and he's there and happy and ready to go, like he's a lead back who's going to get 20 touches a game on a team that's going to run the ball with a mobile quarterback. Like he's a top 6 running back in fantasy, and you got him as a second or third round value, like that's amazing. But that's the risk you take. So I do think like if I was only in one league where I wouldn't want him in my most important league. How about that?
Yeah, and I think you also want a safer first round pick to pair with Jonathan Taylor. Like I wouldn't want to come out of the first 2 rounds of the draft and my top 2 picks are Tyreek Hill and Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
I want to have McCaffrey and Taylor, or Justin Jefferson and Taylor, which means that you're probably getting him more towards the bottom of the second round anyway.
But even given McCaffrey's injury history, McCaffrey isn't super safe. Right? And if you look at the splits with McCaffrey, I mean, again, I have McCaffrey as my highest rated running back, but like the splits with him, with Elijah Mitchell in the game versus Elijah Mitchell out from last year are significant. Like, and so I don't think he's risk-free. I would want, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, like those are the guys, like, again, even Kupp has a little bit of, right, because he's already.
Eckler is pretty safe.
Eckler's safe, right? I mean, but I agree with your take there. I think Kelsey is safe.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just some bad vibes around Jonathan Taylor. And here's what's great: this is not the last time we're going to talk about Jonathan Taylor. This is a subject we will continue to review often until it's resolved.
Indeed.
Our last bit of player news here, right before we sat down to do the show today, Jaxon Smith-Njigba actually is getting wrist surgery.
Oh, boy.
And he has a chance to be ready for week 1, but it sounds like Jaxon Smith-Njigba hurt that wrist in a very productive preseason game from this weekend. When you hear wrist surgery with a wide receiver, obviously very scary. And
you need those to be a wide receiver.
You definitely
I'm
do.
no medical expert, but I have seen very few wristless wide receivers be successful in today's NFL.
It's a necessity.
I'm just
chance to be ready for week
up.
1 is not the most optimistic way, and that was from Adam Schefter this morning.
Yeah, and I think it just highlights again that Tyler Lockett is going too late in drafts, and this is just another reason to take Tyler Lockett, who is going as wide receiver 30 at the moment. He should be higher than that. So, and he would be.
He was a top 12 wide receiver last year.
Yeah, it feels like he's in that kind of range every year.
Yeah, no, I mean, we did one of our trivia segment again, like
so the only 8 touchdowns.
8 touchdowns for 5 straight years. The only wide receiver in the NFL that can say that. Like it's
rock solid.
Rock solid.
All right, we're going to take our first break. When we're back, we're doing a little bit of Matthew Makes the Call, looking at some polarizing players in the fantasy landscape.
There you go. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.